Yes.
So if that's what it takes tonight, then we'll keep going. We don't we know that the importance and the gravity of the particular decision we're trying to make here. So with that, one thing I want to say, I do want to make a statement to everybody who has joined us tonight, and I appreciate the time that you've taken away from your family. And I want to make this statement as the chairman of the Lake Boon Commission, is that everybody on this call has an interest in the lake, and everybody loves this lake. I don't think people would be joining and dedicating the time and effort and energy that they have to the health of the lake, the safety of the lake, and the enjoyment of the lake. And so whether you're new to the Lake Boon community or whether you've been here for 30, 40, or 50 years, we all have a shared interest in protecting the health, safety, and welfare of the lake and the people on the lake. So this is not a us versus them.
Red, mute your iPhone.
Yeah. Sorry about that. So we're going to be talking about potential additional restrictions on the lake. I understand as a homeowner, as most of you or all of you do, that you want to be able to have the convenience of a dock in front of your property. We understand that. It's a way to improve your enjoyment, but it's also a convenience. We have no interest in limiting anybody's right to access to the lake. However, when we think about the lake as in general, the lake is a unique environment, and it has 4 unique basins. And so Lake Boon is a great pond in Massachusetts. It belongs to everybody. And so the commissioner's job, and we were given this authority in 1941, is to hold that lake in trust for the entire community. So the amendments that we're talking tonight, whether it involves new docks or moorings, it's because the proposal that we're discussing doesn't come from targeting a new development or targeting an individual homeowner. It comes from our desire to follow science and follow safety and health of the lake. That's where it comes from. And so over the last 3 years, funded by the Massachusetts grant, the Lake Boon Association, the Scientific Advisory Board, you're going to hear from, as well as environmental consultants, Brown and Caldwell, they've conducted the most thorough study in this lake's history of the health and well-being of the lake. And what they found is that Basin 4 is not ambiguous. The findings are pretty clear. And we're going to talk with the speakers tonight about what their view is of Basin 4 relative to the other basins. And in addition to that, you're going to hear that Basin 4, because of the depth, the limited depth of average of 3 feet, creates unique challenges that you don't see in other parts of the lake. And it also is susceptible to PFAS, which sort of ends up in that end of the lake, both due to runoff and due to just the current of the lake. And so I would ask that everybody keep an open mind. I would ask that people, prepare their questions so when public comment comes, they'll have an opportunity to speak. But I just wanted to make that statement at the beginning that we're taking this extremely seriously, and we're trying to get to the right or the best decision that we can make as a community, and I hope that everybody respects that. So with that, Mr. Barstow or Mr. Worf, do you have any other open comments?
I do not, other than the fact that a lot of people may not realize that Basin 4 is really not open water. It's shallow. There's a lot of stumps in it. If you drive a boat down that direction, you're taking your props in your own hands. A lot of people have destroyed props down there hitting stumps. So when you're standing on the shore, it looks like, oh, beautiful Lake Boon, when in fact it's very shallow, very muddy, and has a lot of stumps in it. Thank you.
Mr. Barstow, anything?
I also echo your comments, Mr. Terrell, about how we take this seriously, and we welcome everybody to this meeting and to our discussion, and we welcome new residents to the Lake Boon community. I do want to present I've got a few slides that give kind of a context and an overview of this. And if we could take a few moments to do that before we turn it over to our invited guests, is that okay?
Yes.
Okay, so I'm going to share this screen. Can everybody see this map?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, this shows the four basins. And also, I want to make sure I'm always attending to in case any new people are coming in. We're now up to 33. The first basin is the largest, and there's a second basin, third basin, but the one that we're discussing now is the fourth basin. It has kind of two components. One is the one that's near the Lakemont development, and the other is the one that's connected to the public launch. But this is the fourth basin. The basins are defined by sort of the history of their development as the damming and so on was used and the lake expanded. It is, in fact, in my opinion, the most beautiful part of the lake. And so to those who are moving into that area, welcome to, you're very fortunate to be on the really a serene and beautiful part of the lake. It's one that's commonly used with kayaks and other ways to explore and enjoy. Plenty of wildlife, the natural beauty of it, although it is threatened significantly with algae and weeds. We go through annual treatment done in collaboration with Solitude, contractor. They measure certain things with the weeds and so on and give treatment in different places. And they've always called our attention to the fact that the fourth basin, because it's so shallow, has a special risk of the weeds. Now, we did get a state grant from the DEP for a 3-year study in which we monitored the entire lake, and this was funded because we've seen algae blooms and other things around the entire lake. But among the findings, that included, the study included ongoing measurements, scientific analysis of the data, temperature, salinity, and so on for the lake. It did find a few key points around the fourth basin, especially calling attention to the risk there. And then the Scientific Advisory Board, which you're going to hear from in a moment, looked especially as this Cattell property, subsequently renamed into the Lakemont development, as they considered the clear cutting of trees, the wetlands buffer, docks and powerboat traffic, ecologically fragile and shallow, and then the emerging issues of PFAS. And recommended some essential protection zones. And these recommendations were initially made nearly 5 years ago when Hudson was initially reviewing these of buffer zones and constraining the docks and limited boat traffic. This did involve, as I mentioned, large-scale monitoring analysis, collecting data for use in data models. You're going to hear shortly from Kirk Westphal, who is frankly a world-class expert on lake management, and is fortunate that he lives on the lake and is the chair of our Science Advisory Board, but put those into models so that we could look at water flow, surface runoff loads, groundwater loads, sediment loads, and overall lake health with chlorophyll, cyanotoxins, which we occasionally get, and so on. This also has lately a new factor of the PFAS with the Fire Academy using really over many years the foam that is now they've discontinued, but it had exceptionally high levels of PFAS that is starting now to migrate into the lake. I'll let him discuss this further, but there's added data on this as one of the issues we need to watch. So this is the property that we're talking about. This is formerly owned by the Cattells, and this is the fourth basin just below it. And then after the approval, this is after it was cleared for putting in some, I guess it's 18 or so homes. I forget the exact number. As part of this, the Hudson Conservation Commission and Debbie Edelstein, Brandon Parker of that group are here today. They looked at this especially in terms of their responsibility for the lake and other managing the health of the community, and then recommended a buffer zone around this clearing. You can see the buffer zone is on the edge here. That's an essential part of dealing with the fact that we've had this clear cutting and the new development. We also referred to the official wetlands buffer zone guidebook developed by the state, and then this led to a restrictive covenant that established a 50-foot vegetative buffer with no structures or dock attachments or anything that could be put in that area, and a 30-foot buffer with the only allowable disturbances are native plants with permission of the Hudson Conservation Commission. Now, this is an aerial view, relatively recent. The homes have now, they've gone even further in building out the homes, but you can see the area here. The lake, this fourth basin, over here on the right is where the ramp is, and that has traffic, and we will keep that ramp open to let traffic and even see how they come through here. And then this area where this constriction area is, this is the third basin. The area we're discussing is the fourth basin in here. Now, if each of the homes in that area were to put a dock, and I'll say these docks are not to scale, they're just to indicate where they would be, you can see the considerable amount of disruption of the buffer zone that could cause, as well as the number of boats that might be attached to that would greatly increase the traffic in that area. We do have a signage saying that it is a steerage speed only area, to be very careful, and it can be dangerous. And let me just add, more people have come into the waiting room. Okay. I also want to comment that the Halleck Point area is this area above it. The town of Stow had an option to purchase this when the owner sold it, and they had gotten a tax abatement because of this. And the town, then working with residents throughout the state, I think something like 100 people contributed to this. We accumulated enough to purchase that property in order to make it safe. Jackie Goring, who is the head of the Stow Conservation Commission, is also in this call today, and may be able to comment about how we were able to protect that as part of our concern for maintaining the health of the lake. Here is a view showing the property lines of the people who live along here. You can see that there are many in the Lakemont development area here, as also other prior residents. There's development along here, and you can see the property lines. I'll mention that there is one, let's go back to this dock here. There is one recently approved dock that's shared by the two residents here and by the town of Stow, that was approved by the Stow Conservation Commission and Chapter 91. And if we proceed with what we propose, they would continue to have the right to have their dock there. And also Mr. Moore, who has requested the Hudson Conservation Commission reviewed his request for a dock, but this is on the third basin, so it would not be affected by any decisions we make here. So with that, I'd like to just sort of summarize again that this is an incredibly beautiful part of the lake, and we hope that everyone enjoys it. With any new members of our community, congratulations, you live on a beautiful part of the lake, and our interest is in protecting the health and beauty of it and the rest of the lake. I'll say there are many organizations involved. The Lake Boon Commission is the 3-member commission that's talking now. The Lake Boon Association is the publicly member organization, and Dave Siewerski will talk. And also the Concoms, Brown and Caldwell's the science group that supported our research. There were citizen scientists and so on. And also mention that this is work that's been going on really for decades as we consider the health of the lake. So with that, I will stop sharing here. And I know one of the people who we've invited to speak, Kirk Westfall, who's the chair of our Science Advisory Board, does have some constraints on his time. When we get to that portion, Mr. Turow, we might sort of defer to let him have an early time in our speaking. And maybe Mr. Westfall can say, how tight is your time?
Then I have until 8:30 tonight.
Oh, okay. Well, then let's proceed with our schedule, but we've got you until 8:30. With that, I'll turn it back over to you, Mr. Turow.
Okay, so thank you, Dan. That was very helpful for the people who didn't join the call last time. And for the people who are joining for the first time, I just have to remind everybody that we met a couple weeks ago or a few weeks ago, and there was some concern that some people did not have an opportunity to hear the full dialogue. And so we appreciate your patience as we go through some of this twice, but I think it's really important for everybody to hear, and that's why we had this second meeting. So with that, with staying on the agenda, we'd like to, do you want to have Mr. Westphal go?
I suggest that we proceed
with Lake Boon Association with, I believe Mr. Gray is going to be speaking.
Yeah, so Dave Siewerski and Dave Gray with the Lake Boon Association.
Okay.
I make a motion that we go straight into item 3 and defer it to right now.
Any objection?
Nope.
Motion? Do we need it?
I don't know if
Second.
we need it, but let's just go straight to 3.
Let's go.
Mr. Brastow, who's our first speaker?
Yes, so our first speaker is, I'm going to turn the slides over here just a moment to, let me get the slides for, no, not that one, here we go. Dave Gray and Dave Siewerski, these are your slides, can you see them?
Yes, I'll start.
You want to put it into the slideshow mode, Dan.
What's that?
Going to the slideshow mode, and it's a little more legible.
I could. I need to then change. To be honest, Dave,
Okay.
it's a little easier to do it this way, just because I have multiple presentations, multiple
Okay,
screens,
sure.
and it gets a little complicated.
Okay.
So, my name is David Siewerski. I am the president of the Lake Boon Association, and there's currently 4 officers that are on the association. It is myself, Kim Sebasto as vice president, Scott McDonald as secretary, and Dave Gray as the treasurer. And he does a lot of work on the weed treatment and weed programming we do. As Dan mentioned, the citizen scientists we've had involved in here. We've had the Neshoba Green Team kids. So there's been a lot of years that we've been doing this. And I guess also want to talk about the other events we've done. The Water Carnival weekend we do in the last week of August. If anyone is interested in learning more about our organization, it's listed here on the slide. Go to lakeboon.org. We've been incorporated for since 1921, so over 100 years. We had our 100th anniversary a while ago. And we focus more on the recreation and environmental protection of the lake. And some of the programs we do is the septic pumping program. So we've been trying to, keep the lake healthy for many years. And the septic pumping program we have is done twice a year, once in the spring and once in the fall, and it's open to anyone living on the lake. So they can go to lakeboon.org and find out more information on that. you want to go to the next slide, Dan? The fourth basin is, what we're talking about tonight, and for many years it's been a quiet, secluded place, and we seen the beauty of this years ago, and that's why Hollock Point was a focus of purchasing when a developer was trying to buy it and turn it into 7 house lots. So, as it was mentioned, the Stow Conservation Commission headed up a bunch of a group of people, the Stow Conservation Trust, Lake Boon Association, and many citizens around the lake came together and purchased that property to protect this area. So we've been doing this for a lot of years, and this seems to be like just one more step in that progress of keeping this basin definitely for the animals that live in that area, and keep it nice and habitable for them. When you get more development in, a lot of these animals will just find quieter places. So having this step go forward and keeping motorboats out of there is a good thing, I think. You want to go to the next slide? Yeah. So this slide pretty much shows the overall lake depth. If you zoom in on it, if you could do that. If not, the darker the color, the deeper it is. And it shows you in the fourth basin how shallow that is, 3 to 4 feet. And over on the 3 to 4 feet in that area. So it's really shallow, and it's muddy, and there's been a lot of years of weed treatment done in this area. I know at one point, I think it was in the 50s or 60s, some of the weed treatment they did was they used arsenic. So that kind of material and contamination in the soil needs to stay there. If you start disturbing it, it's going to bring it up and bring it into other areas. You want to go to the next slide, Dan? And again, this is the Hollock Point project that we were involved in helping preserve, and the Conservation Commission did a great job putting in trails for this area, some picnic tables in the back, and they even have a little kayak launch that we have over there. And again, that was kind of figured without any kind of dock or anything to kind of help protect that area and stuff. So I guess the rest of the stuff, is there anything else you think I missed, Dave, or you want to take over for the science portion of this? Or
I think you covered things well, David.
All right, so here is Dave Gray, treasurer and science extraordinaire for our project.
I've been kind of the water quality monitoring coordinator, and we've had many volunteers helping to monitor the parameters, take samples for water quality measurements over the last 4 years. Let's go on to the next slide. Our concern with shallow water is that number one, wake damage from power boats is a real concern, and that's the reason the LBC installed a no wake zone. You can imagine it's just common sense. Wakes would increase shoreline erosion, which also degrades habitats for the animals that live there. And what's a real concern is it releases more nutrients from the shoreline. The limiting nutrient for freshwater lakes is phosphorus, and Lake Boon has that problem. That phosphorus or phosphates washing from the shoreline, from all kinds of decaying vegetation, from animal waste, from anything that might wash from a driveway, adds to the nutrients in the lake, and the nutrients are consumed by the algae and the aquatic weeds. And we have a lot of invasive aquatic weeds, which is our big concern here. Yeah, next slide. propeller damage is a concern too, because the middle bullet there is that it can cut and uproot the invasive aquatic plants, and then they just float around and take root elsewhere. And that's been a serious problem that we really watch out for. But the propeller can also, of course, chew up the bottom and disturbs the habitat for the animals, the benthic animals that live there. Next slide. The big thing is that just the turbulence in the water causes sediment resuspension, and that sediment is very light. Even just running a paddle through there, or even just dropping a sensor down to get a dissolved oxygen measurement at the bottom of that pond, of that basin, shows a noticeable amount of sediment being resuspended. So you can imagine that a propeller just throws up a cloud into the water column, which can suffocate benthic organisms, that is, those organisms that live along the bottom. It reduces light penetration for beneficial plants. And then this is an area where we have special concern again, that phosphorus is in the sediment. There are other things in there. And then most recently, we've become very much aware that there are PFAS, the perfluoro and polyfluoroalkyl substances, otherwise known as forever chemicals, which have come through surface and groundwater from the Firefighting Academy just across Sudbury Road and through some wetlands there. And I think we really should have, Kirk Westfall is the expert on this. He has put in countless hours in establishing the, in understanding the creeping nature of this PFAS flume that's coming our direction. So I'm sorry I don't have more slides at this point.
Well,
Kirk,
you do
but I
have
wonder if you could just
Derek,
say a word.
Dave, you do have a couple more, and I think it might be good if you finish your part.
Oh, okay.
And then we
Okay.
shift over to Kirk.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. The risk of putting in docks is that it creates a lot of the same disturbances that that motorboats do, and it would encourage motorboats to be coming up to those docks. So we're really concerned that we don't encourage that we don't create more wear and tear on the waterfront buffer zone. So that's what we're really trying to protect here.
Yeah, and Dave, I know when heard you speak about this before, you had mentioned about that these are seasonal docks. If they were there, they'd be seasonal, which further has disruption of the sediment as they remove and put in, and that has an additional impact.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, shall we shift over to Kirk?
Is that okay with everybody on the commission if I say a few words? I've got a couple of graphics too that I can share. It looks like they're up on the screen here.
Yeah,
like
please.
to
We're looking forward to your comments.
Yeah, and just introduce yourself, Kirk, a little bit about your background and your role as chair of our Science Advisory Board.
I certainly will. Thank you. It's always a pleasure to be with this group. I do look forward to meeting all my new neighbors on the lake. This is, echoing Dan's comments, it's a wonderful place to live. I am a professional water resources engineer. I work for a consulting firm, but the work that I've done here recently has been all on a volunteer basis with the Lake Boon Association Science Committee, which is a compilation of a number of us who live on the lake and have a background in water chemistry or hydrology or teaching biology, things like that. And we've all come together to just help study the lake and understand its dynamics and its vulnerabilities better. My other credential, which is far less important, is that I'm the lead singer for one of the bands that has played during the Water Festival for several years. But that degrades my credibility rather than increases it. But in the work that we've done, there are two issues that stand out in my mind that are relevant to tonight's discussion and a concern in my mind. And one thing is the PFAS. We'll start with that. As you can see here, this is a plan view of Basin 4 and Basin 3 in Lake Boon to the left, the upper left there, and the Fire Academy sort of in the upper center there. We have been trying very hard to collaborate with the state agencies responsible for the Fire Academy. They've undertaken remedial studies that are required by the state.
You want to go to my bedroom and read?
To help,
Someone needs to mute Joanna Maria, please.
To help understand the concentrations of PFAS from the firefighting foam at the site. Nobody was holding them really as a responsible party because they're training firefighters to save lives, and at the time they did not know that those firefighting foam chemicals had toxicity to them. Once they found out, they stopped, but these chemicals persist in the soil. They can last for years and years, decades, and they are slowly making their way into Lake Boon. And what you see here in the yellow line, kind of the circle oblong line there around the perimeter, is what has been officially delineated by Mass DEP as the disposal zone. And that means it's the zone that has been affected by PFAS to the extent that it has exceeded state thresholds for drinking water with respect to PFAS. And there are a lot of angles that we're studying here. We're looking at PFAS in wells around the lake and trying to determine if and where the PFAS comes from, if it can be traced back to the Fire Academy, if maybe it comes from other sources. We're trying to figure that all out. But the state has determined independently from our work that that portion of Basin 4, which you see within that yellow line, is delineated as a disposal site. And Dan, I think going back to the graphic you showed a little while ago, a number of the docks that you showed, the hypothetical docks, would be in that area. Now, I don't know all of the regulations here, but I do know that any soil disturbance in a designated disposal zone requires a lot of consultation, not only with conservation commissions, but the state Mass DEP. And pardon me, from my years of experience dealing with regulatory agencies and environmental attorneys, that would be a real challenge, just to be frank. There are other concerns, obviously, with PFAS and public health, drinking water, but I wanted to bring to the attention of the discussion tonight the fact that at least a portion of this basin that we're talking about, Basin 4, is delineated as a disposal site for PFAS because its levels are higher than the state standards or have been in recent past. And that could cause a lot of permitting complexity. And the concern there, obviously, is stirring up the sediment, not even with boats, but with the installation of docks that can mobilize PFAS. Water flows from Basin 4 to Basin 3 to Basin 2 to Basin 1 in Lake Boon, and any mobilization of PFAS in Basin 4 can make its way into the rest of the lake, and that is a health risk for the entire community. So that's the first concern that I have, and I think it's a very relevant piece of information that may not be as well known as the phosphorus. The second piece, we can go to that next slide, is, as Dave has talked a little bit about the phosphorus issue, the one benefit of Basin 4, frankly, is that it is shallow, and the nutrients that enter Basin 4 settle into the sediment, and they stay there. In the deeper parts of the lake, during the summer, everybody's experienced colder water on their feet when they swim in a lake in the summer. It's because it gets colder as you go down, there's less sunlight. That effect actually traps oxygen, and nutrients can come out of suspension from the sediments naturally. That doesn't happen in shallower portions of the lake. And so we're fortunate that in Basin 3 and 4, which are shallow, the nutrients that find their way in there from septic systems, from leaf waste, from fertilizers and things like that, generally settle out and remain in the sediment. Any kind of increased activity, especially from propellers, motorboats in Basin 4, would mobilize more of that phosphorus from the sediment that would otherwise stay there. And what you're looking at is some photographs from recent years, the algae blooms that have happened as a result of phosphorus coming out of suspension from the sediment. And we can only hypothesize that these would become more frequent and worse if some of the phosphorus that normally would stay in the sediment in Basin 4 is stirred up and mobilized and released and flows into the other basins in the lake. So those are the two concerns that I wanted to just enumerate a little bit. The designation and delineation officially of portions of Basin 4 as a PFAS disposal zone, which will probably require a great deal more regulatory permitting and challenge for the installation of any docks, let alone boating. What they're concerned about is docks, the installation, the construction of such that might disturb soil. And then the other, of course, is the changing of the dynamics of Basin 4 from a catch basin that stores its nutrients and doesn't release them into the water into a basin that could release them into the water due to increased boat activity. So those are two very scientific concerns and a regulatory concern that I think are very pertinent to the discussion tonight.
Thank you, Kirk. And Mr. Terrell, if it's okay, shall we move on to the next speaker?
Mr. Westfall, I can't tell you how grateful we are for your preparation and your insights and focus on this matter and everything that you've done over the years to help maintain the health and safety of the water of the lake. So I just would like to say our deep appreciation for everything that you contribute.
Thank you, Dan. I'm one of many. Dave Gray is the one who's out there in his sailboat every month collecting water samples, and we've got a great database and just a really good understanding of the dynamics in our lake that make it what it is and how we can preserve that and make it better.
Yeah, it takes a village.
You might also mention, Kirk, that you're one of several members of the Science Advisory Board. There are others who have either have lived on the lake for a long time or have other areas of expertise, making sure it isn't just Kirk's point of view, but really is a shared point of view.
Right. That's true, Dan. Thank you.
Okay. So I'd now like to ask Debbie Edelstein to join us. Debbie is from the Hudson Conservation Commission. The property, the Basin 4 actually abuts both Stow and Hudson. So we've asked people from each of those conservation commissions to speak. And so, Debbie, I've got the information you sent on screen, and it's your turn next.
Yeah, thanks. Could you make that a little larger so people can see it, and then we'll scroll down? That's great. Thank you. For those who don't know, I'm Debbie Edelstein. I'm the chair of the Conservation Commission in Hudson. I was also on the Conservation Commission at the time we negotiated with the developer of the Lakemont property. And I wanted to review why we put all the restrictions on it that we put. And you've heard reasons, obviously, from the preceding speakers, and what those restrictions currently are and how that affects homeowners. So we obviously had a lot of community input, both at the planning board level and at the Conservation Commission level for the permitting, the various levels of permitting to do the Lakemont property. And the original developers, not the people brought in to build the houses, that was Toll Brothers, the original developers also wanted to protect the lake. And so our negotiation with the original developers was quite congenial. It was not adversarial at all. We all agreed we needed to protect the lake. So we settled on a set of restrictions for the deeds themselves. So all the properties in the Lakemont development on the fourth basin and the few that are on the third basin have the same requirements, which is there's a minimum 50-foot vegetated buffer from the Lake Boon shore. There are no structures, driveways, or hardscape permitted in this buffer zone. Within the 50-foot buffer is a 30-foot no disturb buffer from the bank of Lake Boon in which only the only thing permitted in there, with the permission of the Conservation Commission, are planting native plants and removing invasive vegetation or hazardous trees. That's in the covenant. I highlighted the language that came specifically from the order of conditions, which is the no disturb buffer from the bank. All right, so those are in the deed restriction. That buffer zone is in the deed restriction. In some places, that 50-foot buffer zone includes a bioswale, which we'll talk more about it below. Includes a bioswale. In some places, that's a berm, and the reason it's a berm and not a swale is that we worked with the original developers on exactly which trees they could cut and which trees they could not cut. And in some places, putting in the bioswale would have damaged the roots to trees we wanted to save. So it's a berm. It's built up rather than cut in, and that berm also needs to be protected. So you have.
Could you just for a moment, could you define a bioswale?
I will. I'm going to do that right now when we get down here.
Okay.
So the within that 50-foot buffer is this. It's a ditch with native plantings to catch any runoff that might be coming from human activities. So that was the deed restriction that's on the deeds. It's a restricted covenant on all of the deeds on those houses. In addition, when the Conservation Commission gave its order of conditions to the developers, we put additional restrictions on every one of those properties in perpetuity. The first one is no fertilization is allowed on the lawns or landscape areas in the buffer zone. There shouldn't be any anyway, but there's no fertilization allowed. The stormwater infiltration devices that are installed by the developer must be maintained. And the bioinfiltration swale, again, that's this depression that runs all along. It has native plants in it. And there's a berm that also has native plants. Those shall be maintained and revegetated with native plants when necessary. That is, if things die, they have to be replanted. Now, we did all of this because we were trying to protect the lake. We wanted to minimize the amount of vegetation that was removed from this site as best we could. We literally walked the site multiple times with the developer and their environmental consultants and literally picked out every single tree they could not move, right? They could not remove. Recently, in the development process, they cut a tree they weren't allowed to cut. And we went out there and have a whole restoration that they have to do because they cut a tree they weren't allowed, a single tree that they were not allowed to cut. So it's been very a conscious decision to make as robust a buffer as we could between the development and the lake because we understand how fragile the lake is. And we wanted to absolutely minimize the amount of activity that was going to happen, the amount of human activity that would affect the lake and the vegetation and the wildlife. And if you go a little bit down to the next thing down, one of the things that doesn't show up in the language but shows up in the plans that were approved for the development here, approved by the Planning Board and by the Conservation Commission, is that the only incursion from in that 50-foot buffer zone that's allowed is a footpath, and it is to be installed by Toll Brothers, and it has specific requirements. And if you want to scroll down, I took the notes from the plan drawings and typed them up. That footpath is 5 feet wide, and it has an undyed wood chip surface. No dyed mulch. It's undyed wood chips. That's the only surface that's allowed, and that will be installed by the Toll Brothers and maintained by the homeowners. The location will be selected and done based on the tree locations and the vegetation along the bank, so as to minimize disturbance of the vegetation. They're going to install it only doing hand clearing. They can't use any machinery. No stripping or grading allowed to do that footpath, and it shall end at the top of the bank. There's no disturbance of the bank that's allowed for construction. So I put this up here because it doesn't exist anywhere else except on the plans. The plans were approved. We are following that, right? We, the Conservation Commission, are responsible, and the Planning Board are responsible for making sure that Toll Brothers adheres to this. But it also, all of these things taken together really speak to how seriously the town of Hudson took the need to protect the lake. And the planning board and the conservation commission worked together with the developer and the Lake Boon Association and the Lake Boon Commission to make sure that we were not clear cutting any more than we had to, right? That we were not disturbing wildlife more than we had to, and that we were making sure that human activity on the land was not going to negatively affect the lake. And that's why there's a buffer zone and a no disturb zone and these path specifications. So I just wanted to make it clear. I don't know that, one of the things that the Conservation Commission would like to do is to have an information meeting with the new owners there at Lakemont, so that they understand all the ramifications of the things, the various layers of restrictions that were put on their property that they may or may not know about. They know about the deed restriction, they may not know about the others. But taken together, they really all indicate how seriously the town took the need to protect that basin of the lake, and by protecting it, also protecting other parts of the lake as things migrate from one basin to the other. So, thank you.
Ms. Edelstein, I have a question.
Yeah.
Thank you for that. So, with respect to the amount of effort that you went into establishing not only the 50-foot buffer, but the 30-foot buffer as well, would the idea of hauling seasonal docks across that area and then pulling them out of that area and then storing them somewhere potentially in that 50-foot buffer, would that be consistent with what the Conservation Committee was looking for, or would that be inconsistent? Would seasonal docks be being dragged down that path and installed around the lake? It looks like there's up to 12 to 14. Would it be consistent or inconsistent with the intent?
Well, it would be inconsistent with the intent. I will say that insofar as you could haul it on the 5-foot wide path without affecting anything around it, I mean, that path was really there intended to, you can shoulder your canoe down or shoulder your kayak down, or walk down and enjoy the water. But it is inconsistent with it. I will say that putting any kind of mooring into the no disturb zone is not really permitted. So that is the deed restriction is quite clear that there is no structure. So anything that would create a structure in that no disturb zone is not allowed. And there's no steps, there's no wood railings, nothing can be installed in that no disturb zone.
Great,
So,
thank you for that clarification.
Yeah.
And I agree. I do believe that for the new people to the lake, there's a lot of education going on with some things that maybe people didn't know. So I think this meeting is serving multiple purposes tonight, and it's also a good chance for people on the lake to see who we are and see who people are in the community. So thank you.
And I
very
think
much.
we should have a homeowners meeting with all the relevant parties, the Lake Boon Association and the Lake Boon Commission and us, and so people can understand.
Debbie, I'd like to also just echo back, having been part of those discussions for many, many hours back in 2021, and when what so impressed me was that the developer was a collaborator.
Yes.
In my recollection, the developer said, in order to increase the value and appeal of these properties, we need to make sure, the developer, needs to make sure that this part of the lake stays beautiful as it is, and that the risk of the damage, this was protective of the properties. This is not an imposition from the town. That was my recollection of the tone. It was a collaborative vision. Does that echo your feeling?
Yes, it was to me the ideal collaboration between a town regulator and a developer, because we had the same goal as it relates to the lake. Would we have liked to see fewer and smaller houses? Sure, but that's not us. We don't cover that. We had the same vision, right? They understood that this property, which had been in a single family ownership forever, right, was going to make a significant difference could potentially make a significant difference in the quality of the lake. And it was completely collaborative. It took a long time. I think we spent, 2 years or something? And lots of site visits and lots of community input, but it was all designed to protect the lake as much as we possibly could, given the scale of the development.
I'll also mention that at that time, the Lake Boon Association and the Science Advisory Board were recommending no docks because of all the reasons we've said. This is not a new point, but that the Hudson, as I recall, Hudson has authority up to the shoreline. So what you could say is no structure, no part of that dock can be on the shoreline. Then the part that's in the water is up to the Lake Boon Commission, Chapter 91, and others. But Mr. Thoreau, shall we move on to the next speaker?
Thank you.
Was that a yes?
Yes, Dan, sorry, I was having a moment to get my mute off. Thank you, Debbie, very much. Appreciate all your hard work and openness here. Thank you.
Before we move on, can I ask a question in regards to enforcement of these regulations? They certainly are robust and well-researched.
No, you cannot. We're not opening up for public comment yet.
Very good.
And now the next speaker is Jackie Goring with the Stow Conservation Commission. Jackie was not part of that original discussion. I mean, aware of it, but you were involved, Jackie, in the Halleck Point. And you may have other comments you want to make, but I want to turn this over to Jackie. And do you want me to show the slide that shows that Halleck Point area, or?
You're welcome to, but I was just going to talk generally about my role in Stow and what the Conservation Commission's role is. So
great, we'll leave it in your hands then.
Yeah. So hi everyone. For those of you who don't know me, my name's Jackie Goring. I'm the Director of Conservation for the town of Stow. I have actually worked for Stow for the Conservation Commission for over a decade now. And unlike Debbie, I'm staff for the Conservation Commission. I'm not a commission member, so I don't have the right to vote, but I staff them. So I just wanted to give that context for everyone. So for those of you who don't know the role of the Conservation Commission, Conservation Commissions have, every town in Massachusetts has one. And they have two main goals, specifically in Stow. We do environmental permitting, so we uphold the Wetlands Protection Act, but we also in Stow have a wetlands bylaw and regulations, unlike Hudson. We also, our other responsibility is to own and manage conservation land, and that includes 2,300 acres of town-owned and conservation restriction land in Stow. And that also includes the Lake Boon boat ramp. So that is owned by the Stow Conservation Commission. As part of those 2,300 acres are the many acres of Halleck Point. As both Dan and Dave mentioned earlier, the Conservation Commission was integral in protecting that property, which was a 7-lot subdivision, the last largest undeveloped parcels of land on Lake Boon in Stow. Thankfully, we had an amazing group of folks that worked together with the Stow Conservation Trust, the Stow Conservation Commission, lots of private donators to protect that land. It was in, as Dan mentioned, a taxed benefit program called Chapter 61, not to be confused with Chapter 91, which is entirely different. And Chapter 61 gives the town the right of first refusal for the property. So unlike the Cattell property, it was not in Chapter, I don't believe. Debbie, you can correct me if I'm wrong. But so we were able to protect that property from what was going to be a 7-lot subdivision. The town, as part of purchasing the land, sold off 2 of the lots closest to Sudbury Road, and those have been developed. And that was helping to offset the cost of purchasing the land. So in terms of docks, the Conservation Commission reviews, and Stow reviews many, many dock applications. So as a Great Pond, although the interpretation of the regulations has changed over the past 5 or so years, the state of Massachusetts Division of Waterways now believes that the Chapter 91 process actually does apply to Lake Boon. So we've been working hand in hand with them to try to help people license their docks. So in order to get a dock license, you're required to actually file a notice of intent and get an order of conditions from the Conservation Commission. And as I said, we review dock applications very frequently and approve them very frequently. And just a point of clarification, so Dan had pointed out that there was a recent dock that was approved by the Stow Conservation Commission at Halleck Point, and that is correct, but I wanted to clarify, it is not shared by the town of Stow. It is shared between two property owners on the two developed lots, as I mentioned before, so we have no ownership of that dock. And also, one of the red blocks that were shown on Halleck Point as a potential dock location, there actually is a dock on that property at 34 Halleck, Dan, and it is fully licensed. It's one of the few docks that was actually licensed through the Chapter 91 process historically before our understanding of that law applying to Lake Boon. So we're also adjusting to that as well, as I'm sure a lot of the lake residents have been hearing about the Chapter 91 process on Lake Boon. Let's see, what else can I say? So as Dan mentioned, the Conservation Commission's jurisdiction is the land and the bank abutting the lake and the land under the water. The Conservation Commission does not regulate the water of Lake Boon or any or pond or water body. That is solely owned and managed by the Department of Environmental Protection through the Waterways Division through that Chapter 91 process. So although a Conservation Commission does review dock applications as part of the Chapter 91 process, we don't license docks, but we do review them. The Conservation Commission really can't deny docks to be installed if they meet the performance standards of the Wetlands Protection Act, along with the Stow Wetlands Bylaw and regulations. However, our permits do orders of conditions do include a condition that require, and this is a state condition, standard condition, and an order of conditions, that all work requires to get all necessary permits. So an order of conditions from the Conservation Commission does not necessarily, for instance, if you're building a home, does not preclude you from filing for a building permit. So I just wanted to clarify some of those things, and happy to answer questions as they come up.
Thank you. We're going to hold comments until public comments. So,
Mr. Terrell, that does finish the invited speakers.
Yep. Please do.
What's that?
I said yes. Does that finish the?
It does finish the invited speakers.
Okay, so at this point, unless there's no objections, we can open it up for public comment. And I would like to try to maintain people who are in favor and people who are not. So, Mr. Weiss, I know that you wanted to speak. You reached out to us in advance. We're going to be a little bit more lenient on time with you. So I know that you speak for several homeowners, but as a representative for the Lakemont residents, if you speak for 10 minutes and then everyone after you speaks for 10 minutes, it wouldn't be fair to other people on the phone. So we're going to give you a little bit more time given your expressed desire to speak.
I appreciate that, and I hope I don't speak for 10 minutes because I will be very parched. I did want to thank you for the opportunity to speak this evening. I appreciate the thoroughness of the presentations you've put together. There was a lot of information that we've reviewed, so for those of you that haven't met me, my name's Rich Weiss. I've been appointed the chair of the Lakemont Dock Committee to speak on behalf of a group of 10 of the property owners in Basin 4. Before I dig in, I heard a few mentions earlier about what Toll Brothers did and didn't do compared to the original Town Line Estates developer and plan, and I think anyone that's met me for more than 5 minutes and talked about our houses knows that I'm definitely not a Toll Brothers fan by any means, but I do want to give them credit where credit is due. They have actually done their hard work, and I've heard it from subs and I've heard it from the project manager. They're trying to, as best as they can, uphold their promises. Trees are flagged and have been explained to us. The buffer zone's intact. Everything's in basic good faith of what they and the original developer agreed to. But I do want to go back to something simple that was covered earlier, which is the Lake Boon Commission's own charter. It was Chapter 712 of the Special Acts of 1941. The Commission was granted authority to establish reasonable rules and regulations for the protection and policing of the waters of Lake Boon. So not extraordinary rules, not selective rules, reasonable rules. At the last meeting, Chair Thoreau, you noted that some bylaws might not be popular with everyone all the time, and we've all been subject to rules that we may not like or agree with. And I think that's probably true. I think, to me, this proposal hits a little bit different. It would represent a significant departure from the rest of the bylaws. All the other bylaws have an equal impact on all lake users. And I also don't want to discount anything that was said tonight by the speakers. I thought they gave great presentations. I thought they brought some really great evidence. I think it's clear how much time and care and thought has gone into understanding, protecting this lake. It's why we have residents that have moved from 7 different states to be a part of this community. I want to be clear, we're not on the opposite side of that goal. This isn't like a us versus them on, we want the lake to get dirty or we want the lake to be like full. Like, that's not why we're here. But the justifications for this amendment are environmental protection, public safety, and waterway congestion. And again, those are important goals we all support. But we heard it tonight. The findings and the data in the Brown and Caldwell report and the Healthy Lake Boon reports, they point to very specific things. They point to nutrient loading. They point to stormwater runoff. They point to the historical waste from the Firefighter Academy and natural lake conditions that drive up the PFAS and create the algae, not docks. And that's an important disconnect because it's not a scientific connection between the proposal that is on the table and what's been discussed. We've heard the commission say in the last meeting, we've heard it said tonight, more docks will lead to more boats and more activity, but the bylaw that's on the table doesn't reduce boats or activity. Basin 4 has the public boat ramp. The boats are already here. We watch them fish. It's great. It's very entertaining to watch. I've watched jet skis go by, breaking all the rules that are established from the boat ramp to the other basins. The boats are going to be here. Some of our residents might get boats. Residents in Stow in the new houses might get boats. Like, it's a public boat ramp. So the boats are going to continue to use the basin regardless of whether new docks are allowed or not. And speculating that a new dock would drive the temptation to more larger boats is, it's speculation. I think we're all reasonable people that would understand that, you can't fit a 65-foot boat in 2 feet of water. I think we're looking for a reasonable solution here. And so restricting new docks doesn't reduce boating activity. It doesn't reduce congestion. It doesn't even reduce the environmental impact that has been presented tonight. It simply changes where those boats are launched from. And the commission already has tools to address the concerns that they say the bylaws will affect. There are no wake zones. There are buoys. Those are activities that regulate boating behavior. Those are activities that affect the water. I don't see how a new dock ban does either of those. It regulates access, not impact. I heard at the last meeting, it was said tonight when Mr. Barstow presented the map of the lake that there could be as many as 20 new docks. I don't think it's the reality of the shoreline. It's not how the subdivision was built out from the original plan. If you were to go around the lake today, you'd actually see that the number of properties that can support the dock from the Lakemont side and the Town Line Estate side is 8 to 10 at most. And that assumes each and every one of those owners goes through the approval process of the existing Chapter 91 and Wetlands Protection Acts reviews. I know, Mr. Thoreau, you said earlier this isn't an us versus them conversation, and I believe that. I believe there's good intent, and I hope that's the reality. But every other eligible property in Basin 4, already has a dock, multiple docks, or is in the process of building and permitting a dock. So the proposal at hand really only applies to the properties associated with Lakemont and Town Line Estates on Main Street. And so I raise the question about fairness and consistency, especially when similar dock access is permitted and grandfathered throughout the basin and across all the basins in the lake. The bylaw was proposed to address public safety, but I think we need to also look at owner safety. All the lakefront property owners have dedicated approved clearing footpaths, as Debbie pointed out, through the buffer zone to the lake. So the access is there. We're not talking about access of and enjoyment of the lake. We're talking about how we get that access. And so a fixed dock is actually the safest and most practical and injury-free way to reach the water. Without it, we talked about earlier, people are going to drag boats or drag temporary docks through muddy areas, through sediment and vegetation, and that could actually increase the shoreline disruption that we're worried about. That's not less impact. That's more. And so I want to make sure we take a step back, because I think we all agree on the diagnosis of the lake's challenges. I think the science that was presented tonight, I think the arguments, we agree on that. I think what we disagree on is the cure. I think this bylaw attempts to solve a nutrient problem with access restriction. It tries to manage the activity levels by limiting where boats can tie up, not how they operate. When I talk about with my neighbors, we're not asking for special treatment or new rights. We don't want like a whole new bylaw just for Lakemont. I don't think that that's right. We're just asking to maintain the status quo. Docks have an established process, a state and local process, that are evaluated on a case-by-case basis. Both conservation commissions mentioned that process today. The proposal replaces a pragmatic solution with a blanket prohibition, and the existing systems worked. Many of you that have docks have gone through this process. The proposed bylaw does not reasonably improve public safety, navigability, or environmental integrity of the dock. I'm worried that voting yes on this bylaw is going to alienate neighbors. It's going to create lasting division in our shared community when we're all trying to come together. And I'm really hoping that it doesn't lead to residents trying to pursue every available to challenge and appeal. So I'm just asking to act reasonably and reject the proposal tonight. A new dock ban for 8 to 10 docks is not going to resolve the environmental issues of the lake. It's going to escalate feuds. It's going to be time-consuming, costly, and difficult. I'd rather see us as a community come together and direct our combined energy towards generating practical evidence-based solutions that protect and strengthen the lake for all of us, all the residents of Lake Boon. And so I'm asking respectfully that you vote no on tonight's bylaw.
Thank you, Mr. Weiss. That was insightful and passionate, and I understand your position fully. As I said at the last meeting, I mean, you influenced us to carry this meeting over to here, so we have heard you, and we understand how there's going to be two sides to every potential rule. So division works in a lot of different directions, and we don't want that, and you don't want that. And if we could dialogue to find a meeting, maybe we will. But thank you for your comments, and I'm going to open it up for other people. Mr. Barstow, I can't see all the hands because of my screen. Can you control those?
Yeah, Jay Petrie.
Hi. We have a place up on the first basin. I'll keep this pretty short. I really understand the challenge of the people down at Lakemont, coming in with that expectation, but having been canoeing, kayaking for a number of years on that fourth basin, it's really hard to see how that can be squared with the extra traffic that I think is inevitable. I understand your comment that, a dock is not the same as a boat, but I think it's a little unrealistic to think that adding half a dozen or a dozen docks is not going to substantially increase the boat traffic. Yes, there's a boat launch, but that's a more sporadically used thing. And I think just having a lot more docks and in all likelihood boats on that basin would just inevitably lead to the exact problems that we're trying to avoid here. So that's my 2 cents worth.
Thank you for your comment.
I see a hand raised by Robert Koenig.
I'm lot 10. I'm Lakemont, right on the water, and I have a pathway, as Debbie said, that goes from my property through that environmental zone right to the lake. And as Debbie said, I can carry my kayak down to the lake on my shoulder. I don't touch anything. I put my kayak in the water. I stuck in mud. I got into the kayak. I kayaked the full length of the lake, 1.5 miles, up and back. I got out of my kayak and I got stuck in the mud. I fell backwards. I cut my leg, deep gash in my leg. I had to go to the doctor. I had to get on antibiotics. It took weeks for it to heal. Sherry, my wife, who's sitting here, thought that I was going to die from whatever chemicals were in that water. highly dangerous. I mean, it was, and when I got up to the house and I was covered in mud and I was covered in gook and I was bleeding, heavily bleeding, Sherry said, "What did you do?" I said, "I got out of my kayak and I got stuck in the mud." That's wrong that I don't have access. It's wrong that I got so badly hurt. And God forbid I died.
That would have been
All right, that's all I have to say.
Thank you for your comments.
Steve O.
Hi, everybody. Steve O'Riordan here from 12 Davis Road over in the Second Basin. Kind of wanted to say a couple things. First of all, I completely understand anyone in the new subdivision who, wants access to the lake. Who wouldn't? It's an amazing resource. And if I, spent that much on a house, I'd do everything in my power to assure I had access to it too. Some things need to be considered, though, in order to keep the lake as it is an amazing resource. I think. The first thing I'd like to bring up is a topic about precedent and a term called grandfathered. Almost all the houses that abut the lake have been here for decades, many for over a century. The house that we're in is 118 years old. Granted, it didn't look quite the same as it does now, but the original structure, location, and the plot, the size, everything was set here in 1908. Most of the houses that were built 100 years ago couldn't exist in their present location if they were here today. The requirements for minimum distance from the lake, lot size, they've all increased. The Wetlands Protection Act didn't even exist until the 1960s. It's a pretty common thing in real estate beyond just lakes or docks. You can buy a house in Manhattan with a fireplace. You can't build a new house in Manhattan with a fireplace. This is just how things progress over time. Pre-existing conditions don't in and of themselves justify, additional development or approvals. The location of the development also has relevance. It's on a section of the lake that was not developed, and for good reason. All of the best shoreline, the most accommodating for access and recreation, was developed first. The slopes are steeper and more accommodating for boating in basins 1 and 2. The topography of the lake allows for boating without major disruption to the bottom of the lake. Allows boats to pull up to the docks. By the way, docks can only be 20 feet long on this lake, as I understand it. The depth of Basin 4, as has been stated, is 2 to 4 feet. A dock, which presumably will be on the shore, will be in the most shallow part. And if someone, let's say, gets a wake boat, the draft could be 3.5 to 4 feet. It's just, it's not even possible. So, if a dock is allowed to build, we can't restrict what an owner can tie up to that boat, to that dock or not, right? So they'll have a dock, they'll have access, and assuming one could even get in a big boat there, it will 100% have a major environmental impact on the bottom of the lake. For anyone interested in how boats affect the bottom of the lake, you can reach out to me. I've got a pretty good white paper written by a company called Nortec. It is a maker of underwater sensor technology. That's an industry that I'm involved in for my work. I posted on the Lake Boon Yacht Club Facebook page if anybody's interested in looking at the text and videos. So anyways, and I also heard someone, I think at the last meeting, say, they can put a boat in and drive around the fourth basin, something to that effect. They could, but they won't every day. If they have a dock, there'll be more access, there'll be more usage, there'll be more disruption to that basin, and from an environmental point of view, it has to really be considered. So my final thing I wanted to say is the Lake Boon Commission and the Conservation Commission's listening, don't get bullied into allowing this.
Thank you, Steve.
I see that, Jackie, do you have your hand raised? Jackie Goring?
I do. I just had a question, and if that's all right with you, Mr. Chair, to ask of Debbie. From your presentation, Debbie, my understanding is that the order of conditions would restrict docks. So is it necessary? I guess I'm not sure. Is that true? Are docks restricted? So is there a need for the the restriction from the commission, or is it just the thought to have it doubly restricted?
It's the deed restriction from the planning board that is being interpreted by the town council as not allowing docks because you can't have any structure on which to put the mooring of the dock. And it ends up coming to the Conservation Commission. I think the hard thing, if we want to explain the permitting process to people, I think the hard thing for people to understand is that there are multiple layers of permitting, and each entity looks at only its little thing. So the Chapter 91 people look at the structure of the dock. Does it meet their dimensional requirements, et cetera, right? They don't look at whatever restrictions the town has put on. Same with DEP. DEP looks at the Wetlands Protection Act, but doesn't look at any restrictions, deed restrictions that the town may have put on the properties. So each permit that you have to get is looking at a slice of something, and it ends up being the Conservation Commission in this case that's looking at both the deed restriction and the Wetlands Protection Law. And so it's somewhat more complicated, and it ends up falling on us to enforce the deed restriction that was put in by the planning board.
That's interesting. So the order of conditions, though, includes only one path. So my thought would be, wouldn't that restrict meaning only one dock? If a dock could even be permitted? I guess that's where my confusion lies in all this. And I've tried to connect with Dan. He keeps missing me, and I keep missing him. But these are my questions that I guess I'm curious.
It's one path per property.
Oh, I understand.
One path per property. And I will say that I was making a distinction between the original developer and Toll Brothers, because the original developer negotiated this, and Toll Brothers has to implement it. And Toll Brothers has been great at implementing it. I mean, I'm not saying anything negative about them. It's just that they didn't negotiate it. They implement it. To clarify for the person who was concerned about that. Yeah, I mean, it is one dock one pathway per property, so everybody has access.
Thank you. Who's next, Dan?
I don't see any other hands. I mean, Steve O, do you have your hand still up for a new question, or are you done?
Oh, sorry. I just didn't put it down.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mr. Terrell, I don't see any more hands raised.
Okay. With that, I'll give 30 more seconds if anybody else wants to chime in. And if not, we will close the public comments portion of the meeting. See any more hands go up, Mr. Barstow?
No.
Okay, so good dialogue. Thank you for the presenters. Thank you for the public comments. Thank you for the comments that were offered up at the last meeting. So a couple things. I mean, if you boil it down to what we're asking to consider as a community is, are we going to take public space and convert it into private parking for large boats or multiple boats, large and small motorboats? That's essentially what we're doing. We're having a discussion about whether or not things that have for 100 years been publicly accessible, protected land suddenly become private parking and storage for boats. And that's a matter of convenience. That's not a matter of right. Just because you own property on a lake doesn't mean that you get to do whatever you want once you reach the shore. So we all have a responsibility. The lake, I think as Debbie mentioned, everybody has a little bit different responsibility. The Conservation Commission has a responsibility. The Planning Board has a responsibility. The Lake Boon Association takes responsibilities for the enjoyment of the lake, and the Lake Boon Commission has responsibilities. And the question that we're asking tonight is, what is the responsible thing to do as a community within that responsibility? And so one of the things that we had to consider is, what is the Lake Boon Commission's actual role? Because we've talked about the role of the commissions that sit, the conservation commissions that sit on the towns. We've talked about the state of Massachusetts. So what is the Lake Boon's commission responsibility? Our responsibility is for public safety on the lake. Our responsibility is for environmental protection. That's why we have conducted the studies. That's why we've received the grants. That's why Hudson gets a budget every year that they contribute to, and Stow gets a budget every year that they contribute to. And it's been a team effort. We also have to talk about navigation and public access. We're responsible for putting in the buoys. We're responsible for maintaining those buoys. We're responsible for setting limits on how people can behave on the lake, whether they like it or not, and whether everybody's happy or not. There's rules and restrictions that really try to favor everybody in the community. And I can tell you, when we did the winter rules, I probably got more, I would say, dislike than anything. People have ridden their snowmobiles and motorcycles for as long as they've been around, as long as they've been gas powered. But when it got to a point it was too dangerous and it was too loud and it was too disruptive, we stepped in, and well, 2% of the people complained, 98% of the people were happy. And the 2% of the people that complained were extremely unhappy. But I can tell you that the majority of people were very happy that they didn't have motorcycles screaming around the neighborhood at midnight. The other thing that we have to look out for is the human welfare and the welfare of the animals and the habitats that surround or that actually are on the lake. And so what we're being asked to do is consider what are the responsible things for the Lake Boon Commission to do, not what are the favorite things to do or not what are the popular things to do. And we can't think about the lake in terms of 2026. We have to think about the lake in 2126. 100 years from now, how are the people going to look back at the decisions that we make? So, we've been engaged in this dialogue now for weeks, and I think I've taken pretty good notes. There was, whether it was intended or not, there's a sort of a underlying, if you do this, you might get sued, or this is going to ramp up and escalate. I will assure everybody on this call, I'm not worried about that. So let's go through our responsibilities, and Mr. Barstow and Mr. Conray, I'm going to ask you to answer the questions I'm going to raise to you. Public safety. Does the addition of up to a dozen new docks and their associated vessel traffic in Basin 4, a shallow, narrow, congested body of water averaging 3 feet in depth, improve public safety of Lake Boon, or does it worsen it? Mr. Barstow?
What's the beginning? Does what do that?
Does the addition of up to a dozen new docks and their associated vessel traffic in Basin 4, a shallow, narrow, congested body of water averaging 3 feet in depth, improve public safety on Lake Boon, or does it worsen it?
I think I'm trying to follow exactly the nature of the question, but I believe that putting in the docks would worsen the issues we've talked about.
Okay. Mr. Worf? Mr. Worf, you're on mute.
Sorry about that. I've lived in the lake for 47 years, and I stay out of Basin 4. And the main reason I stay out of it is because it's dangerous. There are so many underwater obstacles in that basin that anybody that comes on the lake very often very quickly learns don't go down there. The people that do go down there are the fishermen, and they usually go down there with trolling motors because everybody knows that it's kind of bad down there. So the way I look at the dock situation, I look at it from two things. One, from a homeowner that has a dock, and the other one is the people who have just moved onto the lake and bought those homes. They should have known there were restrictions on those lots. They've been very, very carefully articulated. And as such, you can't put a mooring structure on the shore for a boat or a dock. So so if I have a dock, I got to anchor it somehow. So that's you can't do it. So I think it is a safety issue. I think that anything we do down there to increase traffic in that area is a safety issue for anybody that goes down there. Never mind the idea that we're going to stir the sediment up and mix up stuff like that, which is, I think, also a safety issue. So Yeah, I think it's a safety issue.
Okay, so the commission finds that regarding public safety, it worsens it. It increases fixed structures and motorized traffic in 3 feet of water, creating potential hazards for swimmers, kayakers, children, and emergency responders that don't exist today. Would you agree with that statement?
I would, because I think you're crazy to swim down there because the mud.
Okay.
And as Mr. Coney pointed out, you know, he learned the hard way that it's not a good place where you want to get in the water, even accidentally. And I feel sorry for him. I wish it hadn't happened to him, but that's the nature of those.
Would it, Mr. Wharf, if children go to the end of the dock not knowing that it's 2 to 3 feet deep and they jump off head first, does that create a safety issue or not?
Down there it does, absolutely.
Okay, thank you. Let's go to the next question. Environmental. Does permitting up to a dozen new docks adjacent to the most nutrient-stressed, algae-impacted, and ecologically fragile basin of Lake Boon improve the environment, or does it worsen it?
Worsens it.
Conray?
It worsens it because even a kayak, as was mentioned in the scientific report earlier, even paddling in 1 foot of water stirs up the sediment. So
okay. I just kind of want to move through these, if we can. If you want to dialogue, that's fine. I just want to try to get an initial pulse. Navigation and public access. Does the addition of up to a dozen new private docks and moored vessels in a narrow, constrained public waterway improve the public's ability to navigate and access Basin 4, or does it diminish it?
Diminishes.
Diminishes.
Okay. Is Basin 4 within the designated disposal site for PFAS?
Yes.
Yes.
Portions of it. Yeah.
Thank you. Do we find that phosphorus creates a concern if disturbed by boat traffic?
Yes.
Yes.
Does churning PFAS contaminated sediment in 3 foot deep basin through propeller wash and hull disturbance of motorboats accessing new docks improve the health of residents, swimmers, and those who fish on Lake Boon, or does it worsen it?
Worsen?
Yeah, it's worsened.
Wildlife habitat. Does the addition up to a dozen new docks with the clearing, construction, foot traffic, lighting, and vessel activity they bring improve the habitat for the waterfowl, aquatic species, and shoreline wildlife that depend on Basin 4, or does it harm it?
Harm.
The Hudson buffer zone. Does prohibiting new docks in Basin 4 strengthen the 30-foot no disturb buffer and 50-foot vegetation buffer negotiated with the town of Hudson and the Lakemont developer and the Lakemont Homeowners Association, or does permitting docks weaken that buffer?
It weakens the buffer.
It weakens the buffer.
Do you believe that installing 10 new docks would increase boat traffic in a way that would otherwise not exist?
Yes.
Yes, and I'd like to comment on that one, but yes.
Go ahead with your comment.
I've been on a lake, like I said, for 47 years, and what you notice is first somebody buys a property, then they put a dock in, then they find out they want a boat, and the boat goes in. So, you know, it's an inevitable result of having docks, you get boats.
Next question, cumulative impact. The question is not whether one dock harms Basin 4. The question is whether 12 potential docks installed over time with 12 boats, 12 sets of guests, 12 anchored systems discerning the same 3-foot bottom cumulatively harm Basin 4. Does the commission evaluate each application in isolation, or does it evaluate the cumulative effect of all foreseeable development on a fragile water body? Are we looking at the cumulative effect, or
we need to? Our responsibility is to view the cumulative effect. We have responsibility for the full lake.
Okay.
Yeah.
Are any of these? Go ahead.
Mr. Terrell, I would say both. You know, you have short-term and long-term effects, so we have to look at the cumulative effect of things on the lake.
I'm asking you if you believe that has a cumulative effect.
Yes.
Precedent, and for if the commission approves one dock application for Lakemont, on what legal or factual basis does it have to deny the next 11? Does approving the first application create an expectation or obligation to approve all subsequent applications from similarly situated lots? This goes to the idea of a uniform ban on Basin 4 versus individual docks.
the first one establishes a precedent.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Did you have a?
yeah, I'm thinking about it. It is a fairness to the precedent issue. If my neighbor gets a dock, I can't have one. That doesn't work. So it does have a precedent.
Restrictive covenants. The town of Hudson negotiated and recorded restrictive covenants prohibiting structures in the buffer zone, specifically to protect Basin 4, as we've heard from the commission tonight. Does permitting docks that penetrate or abut that buffer honor the intent and spirit of the covenant, or does it render it meaningless?
If we put in docks that abut the buffer, they need a way to get into the buffer, and that is, it violates that agreement.
Yeah, that's a tough question to answer without a lot of detail, but fundamentally it violates the no disturb piece of the buffer.
I was asking about the spirit of the covenant.
Yeah, in the spirit of the covenant.
Property values and community character. Proponents of new docks argue that they enhance property values. Who bears the cost if Basin 4 degrades? If algae blooms worsen, if PFAS levels rise,
public dock that.
Can you please, whoever's talking, can you please mute your phone? Thank you. Proponents of the new docks argue they enhance property values. Who bears the cost of Basin 4 degrades if algae bloom worsens, if PFAS levels rise in fish, if the basin becomes unsafe for boaters, swimmers, and kayakers? Do the benefits of the new dock accrue to the same people who bear the environmental and health costs?
To weigh, the net impact of having a dock or having a better basin. I'm not an expert in property values.
I'm asking you, if algae blooms worsen, if PFAS levels rise in fish, if the basin becomes unsafe, do the benefits of the new dock accrue to the same people who bear the cost of the environmental and health concerns?
You're asking if
the whole lake
this will impact the entire,
let me reframe it another way. The addition of the docks benefit.
I am working with the DEP.
Would you please mute your phone? Will you please mute your phone? Dan, do you have control over?
I keep on muting, and now it's muted.
Okay. The question is, the benefits of the docks that are being asked, 10 docks, would have to be compared to the overall benefit of the lake or risk of the lake. If the concerns of the Conservation Committee and the Scientific Board, if the algae blooms worsen, if PFAS levels rise, that's a shared cost by the whole lake, no? Or yes?
Yes.
No.
I'm sorry, the Fuller,
I don't know who keeps unmuting their phone, but we're not taking public comments. And if an individual believes that the entire lake has the same weight as one dock, that's not something we're going to discuss right now, because the answer is obvious. The lake, okay, so on timing, the Healthy Lake Boon Science Advisory Board has completed its work. The PFAS contamination from the Firefighting Academy has been documented. The Lakemont development is underway. Is this the moment that we want to stress Basin 4, or should we let it settle and potentially reconsider this, or should we make this motion now and then reconsider it should things change at a later date?
We should make the motion now.
Definitely make it now. And open meeting law says you can listen, but you can't talk.
Do we feel like the Lakemont homeowners had additional time tonight to express their concerns? Do we feel like the people who are in favor of limiting the docks in Basin 4 have had equal time, or do we feel like we've given a disproportionate allotted time to the homeowners to express their concerns?
We allocated all the time they wanted.
Okay.
At some point, Dan, I know you're going through a set of questions, and I'm respecting that process. I have a few other things I want to say, but I want you to finish your process.
There's a reason why I'm doing this, Dan.
I understand. So you proceed.
Okay. This is my last question.
Okay.
the Hudson County, the Hudson Planning Board required as a condition of approving the Lakemont subdivision that every lakefront subject would be subject to a deed restriction recorded in perpetuity. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, those were 13 questions. Did I give you those questions in advance?
No.
No, it took me by surprise, so I
Okay,
did not
so
know you had those
you were
questions.
answering spontaneously based upon the presentations that were given to you previously?
Yes.
I was answering based on the public comment we heard in our experience of the lake.
Okay, so within our responsibilities of public safety, environmental protection, navigation, public access, human health, wildlife habitat, the Hudson buffer zone, cumulative impact, precedent enforceability, restrictive covenants, property values and community characters, and timing, as well as ability of the public to participate in this meeting and have disproportionate time for those who were concerned about it, and recorded deed restrictions. Those are spontaneous answers. Do you have any questions about the questions that I've asked?
No.
Okay. With that, Dan, what are your additional comments or questions?
So I'd just like to speak from the heart here. This has been a really tough process to think this through. And I really, I appreciate Rich's comments about how we're all on the same side on this. We want to protect the lake. We all do it. The new residents, people who've lived here for years. We're on the same side of this conversation. I also have thought a lot about Robert's issue with trying to launch his kayak, and kayak is an innocent thing, and you're going around, and he got hurt. That's danger. And as I was preparing for this meeting, we couldn't have our own internal discussions. I had to think about it myself here, and I'm thinking, what are our options here? Could we allow, like a small dock for kayaks, or non-motorized vehicles? But even that dock has to attach to the land. It has its own disruption. And then one small dock, it gets approved by Chapter 91. And the next thing you know, well, it isn't. We got a bigger boat, and it gets bigger, and it's a slippery slope. So it's a sensitive issue. Maybe put in a cinder block you can step on or something. But putting in a little dock, that became problematic. And then I thought, well, what if we say no power boats in the fourth basin? Well, we can't really say that because, we've got the launch. So getting power boats, we need the public launch access in there. And, maybe we can do this for a period of 5 or 10 years or something and see how this goes. But I just, every time I tried to say, is there a way to allow, a small dock or something, I just couldn't come up with a solution that we could count on. And so that's where and I hope as we move forward, however we pass, to work with Rich and the other members of the community on all we can do to protect the health of the lake. But I haven't been able to come up with any good solution other than we've got to just sort of, for a period of time, we got to say it, and this is not, the fourth basin is at risk. And so that's my thinking that led to where I feel we are now.
Thank you, Conrad.
Yeah, very similar to what Mr. Barstow said, but, this is not just a fourth basin issue. It's a whole lake issue. And people don't realize that, because those of us that have worked on this problem for many, many years, we've gone through how do we treat the lake, how do we draw down the lake, and all these things. And it's all been how do we make the lake more healthy. And the trouble is with Basin 4, there's a tremendous opportunity on there to stir up that sediment and to spread it around the lake. And that's not good for the lake. It's not good for anybody. I feel very, I've spent my whole life on lakes. I was born on one, and I've lived one on ever since. So I feel, concerned or sorry or something for the people that buy a very nice house on what they think is a pristine lake lot, and they're not pristine lake lot. And I think that's where the whole conflict comes in. You stand on the shore, whether it's summer or winter, you look out and see this beautiful body of water in front of you, and you don't realize that it's full of stumps and it's only 2 feet deep most of the places. So, I think the only, it's like, I don't like to ban anything, so but I think the only way we can do this is we have to control development in the basin.
So, thank you, Conray. Look, if anybody's wondering about procedurally what it is that we're doing, because, I can read between the lines with some of the public comments that were made. And I want to make sure that when we make decisions on this lake, we're transparent and we're taking into consideration everybody who lives on the lake, who accesses the lake, abuts the lake. We are concerned that your health and well-being and safety, as well as the people who visit the lake and the people who swim in the lake and kayak in the lake, are protected. And when we make a rule change, it's not easy. Any rule change is not easy, and it's both emotional and intellectual. And there's also a process that we go through that we document why we made the decision that we made. And I wanted to make sure that I went through these questions that Mr. Barstow and Mr. Wharf had not seen before to get their honest reactions. And it's going to be documented, and every question I ask is going to be in the minutes. And so when somebody comes back and says, why did the commission make the decision that it made, they will have heard from the town of Stow, and they will have heard from the town of Hudson. They will have heard from the Lake Boon Association. They will have heard from the Scientific Advisory Board, and they will have heard from the community, and they will understand that there were 13 reasons that the 3 members of the commission found weight in considering. And so for those of you who are on this call that are worried that you are individually impacted, as Mr. Wharf said and Mr. Barstow said, you possibly have bought into something with an expectation that is unfortunately not one that's going to be met potentially. And that is somewhat a matter of diligence. And trust me, if I bought a house on a lake, I would expect to have a dock. And when I bought my house, I made sure I had a dock. And it's not easy for us to sit here and say that someone cannot have a dock. What we're going to consider is what we have the responsibility for, which are all the things that I just listed. And that's limiting activity on the lake that creates the types of risks that we're empowered to restrict. And, as Debbie mentioned, we don't permit the docks. What we do is we create rules that protect the lake and the safety and well-being of the people on the lake. And that includes the accessibility on the surface of the lake of whether or not docks create a safety issue or an environmental issue. And so our recommendation is that we need to consider that in the comments that were made by people who want to continue to protect the lake. And that's not to diminish any way the people in Lake Boon at all. I mean, believe me, I do understand, we all understand the potential. But as you heard, if we don't act, on the other side, there's going to be a lot of people concerned about PFAS and chemicals and sludge and algae and everything else that comes floating, and invasive weeds that come floating down, Basin 3, 2, and 1. So with that, Dan, do you have the language that we discussed?
Yeah, let me bring it up. Do you see this?
I do. Okay. The first question was whether or not we needed it all. That was a question that was raised. I think we do need it for the reasons that we stated that were stated in the questions that we answered. A blanket ban is easier to manage than an individual ban. The question is do we have another restriction there related to 20 feet from shore?
We do. Our current bylaws require us to review any docks that are longer than 20 feet. but it's not part of, we don't use that language in here.
But the question becomes is, do we collapse these into one
I see.
statement on docks?
No, because whatever we do on the lake, the dock is going to affect the whole lake. And I think we need to have that as a discussion in our next meeting. In that 20-foot rule, needs to be adjusted, but I think we need to discuss that in a separate meeting.
Well, let me give a different point of view on this. I think we may want to say that we want to review all docks.
Well, changing the 20-foot rule would actually create.
Well, it's the 20-foot rule is, this is that we need to review. It's different. This is specifically dealing with Basin 4 as a unique location with its own ecosystem that we have to deal with, that we've discussed in many different ways. But it's also, maybe it's a separate point or something, but I think the 20-foot rule, that was, I think the issue of thinking about docks, that we should review all of them. I'm not sure this is the time or moment to say it, but that was the question you were asking, I think, Mr. Terrell.
Yeah, so I guess what's on the table is we're only going to review this particular language. We're not reviewing any other language. Is that correct?
Correct.
Yes, we, for our procedure, we need to only review this one right now.
Okay. Any other comments?
Well, do we want to look at the language of this? Is there anything we need to clarify or anything?
All right, let's go through it. No docks, moorings, anchoring system, floats, swim platforms, or other seasonal or permanent structures for the structures for the mooring or securing of watercraft shall be placed, installed, or maintained within Basin 4 of Lake Boon. Is that clear?
I think so.
The only thing it leaves out is swimming. So what if I said I would like to have a dock, so I'm just going to swim off of it?
It says swim platform.
Well, is a dock a swim platform?
Well, are you suggesting we create a definition of the word dock?
No, I'm just, being a little controversial here.
No, I want you to be, because I have a feeling we're going to have to be.
Yeah, so when you say permanent structures for mooring, securing, I think we need to, what you really want to do here is we're creating a prohibition of creating a structure that gives you better access to the lake for those purposes. So right up front, the issue, these are all uses you can use of the dock, but the real purpose of the dock is access to the lake. So, if you look at Robert's issue with his kayak, he wants the dock so he can get in and out of the lake easier, and that's really not in this list. Does that make any sense?
Well, I think we've said it. It says no docks, moorings, anchoring systems, and so on. I think the language there, I remember thinking about it since our last meeting, and I think the language is all-encompassing.
So what I get to is where we say for permanent structures for the mooring or securing of watercraft shall be placed. I think that area where we say for the mooring or securing of watercraft, I think we can stop at where it says, or other seasonal structures, seasonal or permanent structures, they shall not be placed or installed or maintained in Basin 4. I think when we start talking about the purpose of the dock, that we're getting in trouble.
I think we need to say explicitly, because that's the whole idea here, is to control not
so
just the dock. So what if we added securing a watercraft or swimming?
So I'm going to put a dock in and sunbathe on it.
You can't do it. It's a dock.
Is that how we're going to interpret it?
Well, Conrad, the question is do we have to create a definition of the word dock, or is there a commonly understood? If you can't put a dock in without it getting permitted, and I think it's been expressed by both the towns of Stow and Hudson that if you want to put anything out there, then by definition it's a dock that's created by the rules of the state of Massachusetts.
Okay, that's good. Okay, I'll accept that.
Dan, anything else?
The last sentence, I'm thinking that we need to clarify what we mean by lawfully existing. Is this, I'll just give a couple of examples. The one by the Murphys on the Halleck Point that has been permitted by the Stow Conservation Commission and permitted by the Chapter 91, but has not been, it doesn't exist yet. I think that we should allow that because they've been through and completed that approval process.
Yeah. We're not grandfathering docks that existed 100 years ago. I'll only go back just to make sure now that I see the wording. So Conrad, you're suggesting no docks, moorings, anchoring system, floats, swim platforms, or other seasonal or permanent structures shall be placed, installed, or maintained within Basin 4. You're just saying you're deleting it, right?
What you said is what I'm saying. Yes.
So
For any,
and the mooring of secure watercraft shall be placed is duplicative.
yeah, because really what we're saying is no dock for any purpose.
No docks, moorings, anchoring system, floats, platforms, or seasonal or permanent structures shall be placed. Not specifically for watercraft. I got you.
Yeah. Okay. I can see that point.
Okay. And again, we do have the right to massage this even further, provided that it doesn't change the basic meaning of what we're potentially approving tonight. But okay.
Yeah, that was my concern. And Mr. Barstow talked about it. No docks means no docks for any reason.
And then the question becomes, someone's going to say, "What's a dock?" So I'm sure that's covered.
We get this. Yeah. Well,
I think we can. You can. I don't think it's worth doing an elaboration of definition of the dock. It's sort of a well-established term, and docks need to be reviewed and approved and so on. I think it's a generally accepted term.
Okay. Is there any more discussion on this?
On that sentence or on
no, and anything related to this?
So just to be clear about the lawfully existing, we've said that if it's been approved but it doesn't exist yet, it's still Mr. Murphy, the property on the Halleck Point, that would still be allowed, correct? Because it was already approved by Chapter 91.
well, you could add the word lawfully existent or permitted.
Yeah, I think he's also not in Basin 4, Dan.
No, that is. I'm not talking about Mr. Moore. I'm talking about Mr. Murphy.
Oh, Mr. Murphy?
Yeah, Mr. Murphy, that is a shared dock off of Halleck Point that just...
Yeah. But that's permitted, so lawfully existing or permitted. Okay.
I think that covers your concern. And lawfully existing includes, what we're considering, we're calling grandfather. So a grandfather clock, my dock's been in place for 50 years. So, no, it's longer than that. 100 years is the dock where my docks are.
Conrad, did you have a concern?
No, I like it.
All right. Is this the language that we're ready to vote on?
Yes.
I believe so.
Okay. Dan, for the record, was the meeting posted more than 48 hours in advance?
Yes.
Was it posted in Hudson?
Yes.
Yes.
Was it posted in the town of Stow?
Yes.
Were we able to have a public meeting via Zoom?
Yes.
Yeah.
We had 2 meetings.
Is this, I was going to ask that, this is the second meeting on the same topic?
Yes.
Yeah.
Do we feel like we have adequate time dedicated to public comment?
Yes.
Did we have the ability to question speakers?
Yes.
Did the speakers have the ability to question us?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, with that, I believe that we've met the requirements of the open meeting law of the state of Massachusetts, and I believe we're consistent with our charter and our responsibilities for governance of the lake. Can I have a motion?
I move that we adopt this, and I'll read the language. I move we adopt a new bylaw for the Lake Boon that is Basin 4, prohibition on docks and moorings. No docks, moorings, anchoring systems, floats, swim platforms, or other seasonal or permanent structures shall be placed, installed, or maintained within Basin 4 of Lake Boon. This provision does not apply to docks lawfully existing or permitted in Basin 4 as of the date of the adoption of this amendment. I move that we approve this.
I second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Dan, this meeting is recorded.
Yes.
Dan, I'm going to ask the commission if we can get a written transcript of this meeting.
Yes.
I know how to do it.
Okay.
I mean, I can get a written transcript. I'm asking for approval of.
Yes, I approve that. I mean, I don't know whether it's a motion, but
I need
move,
a motion.
Yeah, I move that we proceed very quickly with getting this a written transcript, and then we post both the audio, both the actual recording and the transcript. Shall we say within a week?
If we can get it transcripted in that amount of time, that's fine.
Yeah, or as soon as possible.
And that transcript will be available for both Hudson and the town of Stow.
Does not Zoom automatically create a transcript?
It should. I don't. If it's recorded, it should create a transcript. But what I'm asking is, with the Lake Boon Association, we'll make this available. Yes.
We don't represent the association.
No, but I'm saying we will make it available to them, whether they.
We will make it available to the Lake Boon Association and notify within the towns of Stow and Hudson.
Okay, and then I've had a list of questions that I've submitted. Dan, I'm going to give these to you because you had not seen these beforehand to include in the minutes. Yes.
Yes. I would also like to include in the minutes the copy of the document previously submitted back in October 2021 by the Lake Boon Association and Science Advisory Board to the Hudson Conservation Commission Planning Board as they reviewed this. And it is sort of a background that shows 5 years ago the efforts that we were doing along the same lines.
Yes, and I'd like to also, for the inclusion of all of the presentations that were given tonight.
Yes.
And I would also like, as an exhibit, the Hudson Planning Board Section 5.3.41B3 conditions November 1st, dated 2022.
If you send them to me, I can do it.
I will. Also, I'll talk to Hudson to make sure I'm reciting those properly. Proposed deeds restrictions recorded in perpetuity Middlesex South District Registry of Deeds will be included as well.
Sure.
Okay. So we'll have a list of documents, Dan, that we need to include in the package that is publicly available.
Yes. I'm wondering, do we need to have a meeting, or do we want to have a meeting within, let's say, 2 weeks, assuming we've completed all these things, to reaffirm that we did all those steps and also to approve the minutes of the meeting?
Would you like to open a motion on that?
Yes, I move that we meet again in, let's say, about 2 weeks, date to be determined, to confirm that all of these steps have taken place and to review the minutes and approve them.
With the list of all documentation to be included.
Yes.
And that will include the town's conditions as well.
Yes.
Okay.
On discussion on that motion, one question first. We're going to meet in our next meeting. This will not be the only agenda item. There are others I want to propose.
Do you want to propose them now?
I can. There's two particular ones. One would be our bylaws now talk about a 20-foot rule. I'd like to look at that rule and change it to all docks.
During this meeting?
No. This is the agenda for next meeting.
Okay.
And the other thing that's been requested is if we look at our bylaws, the definition of quiet time. It's been recommended that be federal holidays instead of emergency holidays, but we need to look at quiet time definitions.
Okay.
We'll talk about that later.
And then, if the Lake Boon Association would like to participate in the meeting, or either town, if they have any agenda items that they would like to discuss, we can include them as well.
Yeah.
As an invite.
Yeah.
Especially now that spring looks like it's going to be coming.
Yeah, there's open water in front of my house.
In addition, one thing I'd like to consider is the revisit of the fines, because we have the ability to levy fines for violation of the Lake Boon rules. I'd like to have a discussion about that. We've talked for a couple of years about docks in ill repair, and I personally have been neglect in enforcing that. And I'm going to talk to both Hudson and the town of Stow about actually issuing citations, because every spring we have docks floating down the middle of the lake, and shame on us if we're not getting ahead of that by inspecting the docks and exercising that authority.
I agree.
Mr. Barstow?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
We have video pictures of all the docks in the lake. We need to revisit that.
Okay. Any other unfinished business?
Nope.
Conroy?
Not for this meeting. The other thing that's on our spring agenda is getting our boat back in the water and getting our buoys back in the water.
Oh, I'm ready, willing, and able when you are.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Thanks everybody for the patience and participation. Again, really, it wasn't an easy decision, but it was one that was necessary, I think, for the health of the lake and safety. So thanks everyone for participating, and appreciate your
Before
comments.
you close the meeting, we didn't approve minutes.
Oh, okay.
Oh, yeah, I moved that we approved the minutes. I sent them copies to you. I did get the edits that you did, Mr. Giroux, and we now have, and then Conrad, you emailed that you also saw them, so I moved that we approve the minutes as amended by Mr. Giroux.
I second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
I
All
second.
right. Have a good night, everyone. Thank you. Thank you for participation.
Oh, you didn't call for a vote?
Vote to adjourn.
Favor.
Okay.
Aye.
There you go.
All right. Take care. Bye.
Take care, everybody.
All right.
Thank you, everyone.